He never said a single bad word about her. He didn't have to. He got everyone else to do it. Whew. If you've ever tried to explain what someone did to you and watched the person you were telling slowly take their side, this is exactly how it happens. By the end of this, you'll understand how someone can destroy your relationships, your reputation, and your grip on reality without ever attacking you directly. When Nadia finally asked for help, the people who loved her most were already convinced she was the problem. Nadia was 34, a project manager at an architecture firm. Not dramatic, not emotional, the person who fixed things. When her sister's marriage fell apart, Nadia drove 4 hours at midnight with a suitcase and a plan. When a colleague got fired unfairly, Nadia drafted the appeal letter. She was the person people called when the world stopped making sense. She wasn't looking for anyone, which is usually when people like Marcus show up. Nothing about him seemed dangerous. That's because the danger wasn't him. It was what he said to everyone else. It didn't start with a lie. Not a single one you could point to. Not at 3 months. Not at 6. Not even at a year. It started with concern, with care, with sentences that sounded like love. Marcus called Nadia's sister, Clara, one evening. Nothing dramatic, just checking in. And somewhere between the small talk and the goodbye, he mentioned, casually, almost as an afterthought, that Nadia had been a little off lately. "I'm worried about her," he said. "She's been so emotional. I don't know how to help." Clara didn't think anything of it. She filed it away. And that filing was the first move. Have you ever had someone describe you to others in a way that's technically true, but completely wrong? Nadia was emotional that week. She'd cried at a documentary. She'd snapped at a slow barista. Both true, neither the point. But in Marcus's retelling, they became evidence. That's not concern. That's positioning. A few weeks later, Marcus had coffee with Nadia's best friend, Jess. Again, nothing alarming. Warm, open, self-deprecating. He told Jess that Nadia had snapped at him the night before, over something small. "I probably deserved it," he said with a half-laugh. He didn't ask Jess to take sides. He didn't need to. He planted a question. And questions grow. The next time Jess saw Nadia, something was different. Not obvious, not hostile, but the way she said, "Are you okay?" had a new weight to it, a tilt of the head, a concern that hadn't been earned. Nadia noticed it. She couldn't name it, but she felt it. That shift, from being trusted to being watched, is one of the most disorienting things a person can experience. And you don't see it happening. You just wake up one day and realize people are being careful around you. Not because something happened, because someone told them something might. Most people miss this moment. Not because it's subtle, because it looks like care. Softer questions, more check-ins, a new tenderness that hasn't been earned. But underneath all of it, there's a script, and you didn't write it. Have you ever tried to tell someone the truth and realized they'd already heard a different version, and that version came first? That's not a misunderstanding. That's a strategy, and it has a name: triangulation. You don't go to the person directly. You go around them. You talk to their sister, their best friend, their mother. You don't attack. You worry. And slowly, you build a version of your partner that exists in everyone else's mind. A version you control. The person being described? They have no idea the story has already been written. Nadia tried to talk to Clara about Marcus, about small things that felt wrong. The way he'd go quiet for days, the way he tracked her location, the way he'd bring up old arguments in front of other people and then say he was joking. Clara listened. And then Clara said, "But he seems so worried about you. Maybe you're being too hard on him." That sentence. That one sentence didn't sound like an attack. It sounded like love. They were just trying to help. That's what made it impossible to fight. Because how do you argue with people who genuinely believe they're protecting you? How do you explain that the person they trust is the one you need protection from? You can't. So you stop trying. A month later, Nadia's mother called. Not to ask how she was, to tell her. "Klarushka says you've been struggling. Marcus called me too. He's worried, Nadia. He asked if I could talk to you. Such a sweet boy." Nadia opened her mouth to respond, and then closed it. Because anything she said now, any truth, any frustration, any attempt to explain, would land as proof. Proof that she was struggling. Proof that Marcus was right to be concerned. The trap was complete. Not because she was locked in, because everyone around her already believed she was. Have you ever stopped telling people what was actually happening because you already knew what they'd say? Not because they were cruel, because they'd been set up. That's not silence. That's the sound of every exit being sealed, from the outside, by people who love you. They were just trying to help. That's why nobody heard her scream. Marcus never asked anyone to stop talking to Nadia. He never said, "Don't believe her." He didn't have to. He created a context, a frame. And inside that frame, everything Nadia said, no matter how true, sounded like exactly what a person going through something would say. Her frustration became instability. Her boundaries became withdrawing. Her attempts to explain became making things about herself. The people around her didn't turn against her. They turned toward Marcus, because he gave them what felt like insider access to a situation they wanted to understand. And the deeper they went into his version, the further they moved from hers. She didn't lose her support system. It was disassembled, carefully, person by person, until the only voice she trusted was the one doing the damage. They were just trying to help. That's why she stopped asking. But the worst part wasn't what Marcus did. It was what he turned everyone else into. If you're watching this and thinking, "My friends would never fall for this," that's exactly the confidence that makes it work. Have you ever asked someone permission to feel what you already felt? Not for advice, not for perspective, just, "Am I crazy? Am I overreacting? Is this normal?" That's the moment you stop trusting yourself. Not because you're wrong, because everyone around you sounds more certain than you do. When you've heard, "That doesn't sound like him," enough times, you start calling your own memories dramatic, your own feelings unfair, your own instincts too much. And the people reinforcing that? They have a name too. Flying monkeys. Not villains, not enemies. People who love you. People who've been handed a wrong map and are following it with the best of intentions. They pass along messages. They check in, but to report, not to listen. They accidentally become surveillance for someone they think is a good person. Clara forwarded one of Nadia's voice notes to Marcus. Just so you know what she's been saying. She thought she was being fair. She was handing him surveillance. And that's the cruelest part. Because you can't hate them. They care. They're just caring in the direction someone else pointed them. Most people who do this never find out what role they played. And if you told them, they'd probably do it again. Not out of cruelty, out of love. And that's what makes it so hard to name while it's happening. They were just trying to help. That's why she thought she was the problem. Have you ever wondered whose version of you the people closest to you are carrying? Not the one you showed them, the one someone else described. If you'd asked any of them, Clara, Jess, even Nadia's mother, they would have told you they were protecting her. They would have been certain. And they would have been wrong. The moment that changed everything wasn't a fight. It wasn't a confrontation. It was a group chat. Nadia sent a message, something lighthearted, a photo from a walk, a joke about the weather. Nobody responded. An hour later, Marcus posted a meme. Hearts, laughing emojis. 3 replies within minutes. She stared at the screen for a long time. Not because it proved anything, but because she realized she wasn't surprised. She'd been expecting it. And that was the part that scared her. Because somewhere along the way, Nadia had stopped being a person with friends. She'd become a person with an audience. And every word she said was being measured against a story she'd never been allowed to tell. It was a coworker, someone outside the circle entirely, who said the thing no one else could see. You seem different around your friends, like you're performing. And Nadia felt something crack. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a quiet shift, like a bone that had healed wrong and she'd been walking on it for years. She went home that night and sat on the kitchen floor, not crying, just sitting, looking at her phone the way you look at something that used to belong to you. She scrolled through months of messages, the group chat, Clara's voice notes, Jess's check-ins. Every single one filtered through Marcus. Every single one measuring her against a version of herself she didn't recognize. And then she heard something that stopped her breathing. A voice note, her own, sent to Clara 3 weeks ago. She pressed play. I think I've just been really stressed. Marcus has been so patient with me. Her voice. His words. She played it again and again, until she couldn't tell which was real and which was trained. She scrolled to Clara's name. Her thumb hovered over the call button for 4 minutes. She was going to apologize. For what? She wasn't sure. For being difficult? For overthinking? For not being the version of herself everyone seemed to need. Because the warm version of Marcus, the one who worried, the one who called her mother, the one everyone loved, felt real. And walking away meant accepting that none of it was what it looked like. She didn't call. Not because she was strong, because fighting the whole world felt harder than agreeing with it. And agreeing had become exhausting too. That was the first decision she made for herself in years. The most dangerous thing about triangulation isn't the lies. It's that the people enforcing them love you, and they think they're helping. It's a system that punishes you for speaking up, not with cruelty, but with warmth, with concerned looks and gentle suggestions, and the kind of support that only makes sense if you accept a version of yourself that someone else wrote. And even after you see it, even after you name it, part of you still hears it. That chorus of voices asking, "But don't you think you're overreacting?" And the worst part is, it doesn't sound like Marcus anymore. It sounds like Clara, like Jess, like your mother. It sounds like people you love. And that's what makes it stay. If someone came to your mind while watching this, there's a reason for that. They were just trying to help. That's why she almost didn't survive. But here's what Nadia knows now. Once you see the pattern, you stop explaining yourself. You stop asking, "Why don't they believe me?" And you start asking a different question. Who told them what to believe? Because you were never controlling the story. You were just living inside one someone else wrote. Nadia's story involved friends and family, but this same mechanism works in groups too, where the silence isn't one person going quiet, it's an entire room. And when everyone stops talking to you at once, you don't need to be told you're out. You already know.